Hello, Deep Recapped here. Today, let's recap the 80s war movies. There were 2 packs of cigarettes in his drawer, one good and one bad. He quietly hid the excellent cigarettes and then gave his comrades the cheap big front door to smoke. How would the soldiers know that the lieutenant had suitable cigarettes, much less than the lieutenant had hidden his American chocolates before they entered the room? The lieutenant, the son of a senior Chinese army officer, had just arrived in the company. He is the son of a senior army officer and is taken care of by his mother's special relationship. He came to the army to increase his resume. He plans to leave after a few months. He has no friendship or common language with this group of privates. The captain initially had high hopes for the lieutenant and hoped he could help lead the 9th Company, but this guy didn't want to take care of anyone. He even found a private to serve him and help him fetch water, fold the quilt, and wash his clothes in the morning. During training in the barracks, he was sweating and panting, obviously not a qualified soldier. When eating in the cafeteria, everyone was munching on steamed buns generously, but the lieutenant had a bitter face and was picky. The old gold beside him rounded his eyes angrily. The captain noticed the smell of gunpowder on the dinner table, and before the old blonde got angry, he quickly reached out and took the steamed buns and ate it himself. Lao Jin's temper is boiling, and he often criticizes the unhealthy behavior in the army. Therefore, he offends the superiors and never gets a chance to be promoted. If Lao Jin offends the lieutenant again, some hardships may be waiting for him. This is a Chinese war movie in 1984. This movie reflected the most real military life and war life in China at that time, expressing the cruel nature of war and the sincere emotions between comrades in arms. The captain and Lao Jin have been comrades for many years. He knows that Lao Jin is an excellent soldier with a straightforward personality, so he has been persuading him not to be impulsive, but Lao Jin is always furious. He is not just for his tone. He is for the captain. Lao Jin knew that the captain had not been home for a long time. He missed his mother and wife very much and hoped to have the opportunity to hug the child who was about to be born. The captain initially had 30 days of annual leave a year, but because there was no lieutenant in the company before, the captain delayed his vacation schedule again and again. Now a lieutenant came, but he was a playboy. So the captain was worried and had to stay. Lao Jin sees his good brother sadly and misses him every day. Can he not hate that lieutenant? So, to make his brother happier, Lao Jin gave him his leather shoes to wear, to replace the captain's old shoes for many years, so that he could go home with a bit of face. Although the captain seldom accepted the gifts from the privates, he and Lao Jin had a close friendship, so he received it. The lieutenant was in a very depressed mood. He received a letter from his mother, which revealed that his army was about to participate in the war against Vietnam. She was about to go through the back door to remove her son from the military. The lieutenant immediately went to check the newspaper, and sure enough, what the mother said was true. Fear and anxiety overwhelmed his heart. The captain looked at the lieutenant in a very wrong mood and then looked at the newspaper the lieutenant brought back, thinking that the lieutenant's mother called the army every day recently and asked the superior to transfer her son. However, the captain also understood that the war was about to start. The captain decided not to go home for vacation. The company and the country needed him even more at this time. So the army's order to move out came down, but at this moment, a call was made to the captain, which was the lieutenant's transfer order. Lieutenant seemed to know that he was about to be transferred in advance. Lieutenant of the company flinched, which had too much influence on the soldier's mood in the army. The good man's captain finally broke out. He scolded the lieutenant and told him to get out. Captain calmed down again and persuaded the lieutenant to take on the responsibility of a soldier. Captain convinced the lieutenant, and the lieutenant followed the team to the China-Vietnam border. The border areas of China were devastated by the artillery fire of the Vietnamese army. The soldiers saw that the school had been blown up. The Vietnamese military built many bunkers, and the muzzles were aimed at the Chinese military. The commander is in full swing for combat deployment. At this time, a call came to the command, but an older woman was on the other end of the phone, the woman who saved the commander's life many years ago and carried him out of the dead. The older woman called to ask the commander to transfer her son from the front to the rear. Without saying a word, the commander hung up the phone. He was irate and walked up to all the soldiers watching the war movie and told everyone the content of the phone call just now. The lieutenant knew that the commander was talking about himself, and the fear and shame on his face could not be suppressed. The lieutenant heard his comrades gossip about him and knew that he was notorious back in the camp. His premium cigarettes are out. The captain took out his cheap cigarette, lit one, handed it to the lieutenant, and persuaded the lieutenant that you should be integrated into our lives. So the lieutenant decided not to sink again. In a meeting, he expressed his determination to all the company soldiers, and he must become a hero in the war. The mission of the 9th Company is to act as the vanguard, interspersed behind the Vietnamese army, and the task is arduous and dangerous. Before the war, these fighters had to shave their hair because they were sharp soldiers and had a high probability of being injured. Once the head was injured, it wasn't easy to treat. Lao Jin took out $10 and bought cigarettes and alcohol for the soldiers about to go to the battlefield. In 1979 China, 10 yuan was a lot of money to buy the best wine in China. Lao Jin also took out a pack of the best cigarettes in China and threw it at everyone lavishly. Lao Jin is not a wealthy family. He does this just because people have to be rich before they die. The same goes for the captain, who came from a peasant background and bought a pack of cigarettes that he couldn't afford in the past. The soldiers of the Vanguard Company are all dead. They eat the best food and drink the best wine. The commander was very strict. He was very dissatisfied with the lieutenant who escaped and asked the lieutenant to lead the vanguards to attack the Vietnamese army and become a qualified soldier. Lao Jin was a hard-mouthed and soft-hearted person. He couldn't bear to let a lieutenant who lacked combat experience be sent to death and wanted to lead the contingent for the lieutenant. The captain disagreed with this plan. He, the highest commander, must take the lead in the most dangerous places. Lao Jin tried his best to persuade the captain because he still had 3 brothers alive, and the captain's 2 brothers were dead. He has an old mother, a wife, and an unborn child. The captain should survive. The vanguards were struggling to survive in the hail of bullets. They had to travel day and night, always keeping an eye out for slugs. You can only move forward lightly, only carry weapons and ammunition, dry food for 2 meals and water bottles, and throw away everything else. During the battle, a newly transferred young private performed well. Everyone knows that he was directly transferred to the front line from Beijing, the capital of China, and they like to call him Little Beijing. Little Beijing proudly declares that his ideal is to become a marshal. The captain said that he had a big tone, but he admired Little Beijing very much in his heart. The vanguards found the enemy's position during the march, and the 9th Company launched an attack. The young private who once folded the quilt for the lieutenant was unfortunately blown up and broke his leg. When they finally took the position, they saw that the enemy's bunkers were built with rice that China had assisted Vietnam before. The Vietnamese army poisoned all the water sources near the bunker. As a result, the military has been short of water for many days, and every soldier is thirsty and uncomfortable. China's military will wipe out the entire army if this goes on. Hearing that there was a piece of sugar cane at the foot of the mountain, Lao Jin immediately took a few privates to chop sugar cane, but Lao Jin stepped on a landmine on the way back. When his comrades brought him back, he had only his last breath left. He said there was no need to call a doctor for rescue but urged everyone to devour sugar cane. The war continued, and after replenishing the water, they re-attacked the positions of the Vietnamese army. The Vietnamese military had a powerful bunker, and Xiao Beijing rushed to the most dangerous front with a bazooka, and a bullet hit him right in the chest. When the captain arrived, little Beijing was out of breath. The good old captain couldn't help but curse. Finally, China military blew up the bunker, the Vietnamese army positions were captured, and cold guns were fired from time to time. Everyone was carefully cleaning the battlefield. Only the lieutenant participated in the battle for the first time, and he was not cautious enough and proudly took up the machine gun. When the lieutenant was proud, a cold shot rang out, and the captain on the side rescued him quickly, but the captain himself was unfortunately shot. The captain fell silently, and everyone gathered around him and called out softly. The captain's uniform was slowly dyed red with blood, and his friendly face was no longer alive. The captain's death made the lieutenant furious. The lieutenant raised his gun and fired wildly at the enemy, and his comrades rescued him. Then, seeing that the enemy was hiding, the lieutenant picked up a pile of grenades and rushed towards the enemy's firepower. On the hillside, the soldiers of the whole company stood for a long time around the captain's body. The lieutenant survived. He glanced at the captain and took out a piece of paper from his chest. This was not a letter to his family, but a billode, and he remembered each one very clearly. The captain's family arrived at the unit several days late. His wife and mother depended on each other. They had to take their newborn baby with them if they traveled together. After getting off the train, they walked all the way to save money instead of taking a car. The lieutenant ordered all his comrades not to tell his family about the captain's debts. He was going to pay off all his debts for the captain and buy many gifts for the captain's wife. The captain's relic was a brand new military overcoat, a toy for the child. The captain's wife recognized this toy she had given her husband before. She hoped that the captain would bring the toy to the child who was about to be born when he returned home. This toy represents love from a father. The captain's wife couldn't suppress her grief. She ran to the captain's grave alone and burst into tears. Soon after, a white-haired older adult appeared in the martyrs' cemetery, and he was the army commander. He went to the cemetery to see his child, the little Beijing who had died before. Little Beijing is his only child. He asked his children to fight for the motherland but unfortunately lost him in this war. The lieutenant's mother also came to the barracks. After meeting the commander, she still blamed Commander Lei for his ingratitude. But when he found out that the commander had lost his son on the battlefield, she understood the commander's belief. The soldiers and the commander entertained the captain's wife and mother before returning home. Then, unexpectedly, the captain's mother took out the captain's death pension of 550 yuan, as well as the money they sold the property, to repay the captain's debt of more than 600 yuan. The captain sent home a copy of the bill he owed before he set off for battle and asked his family to help repay the debt if he died. The tombs of the martyrs are neatly arranged on the distant hillside. This shining monument makes the whole mountain even more majestic. In this war-themed film, the war scenes of the film only account for less than 25% of the content, and more space is allocated to the daily life of ordinary soldiers, the care of widows after the war, and the filthy unspoken rules in Chinese military camps at that time, the uniqueness of this film. There are no planes and tanks, a hail of bullets, no aerial photography, and a long camera lens. Instead, it strives to avoid making war a spectacle. Different scenes express that the essence of war is cruelty, and it is the sacrifice of one person after another.